Hey everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 301 for December 19th, 2018. My name is Russell Frost. I am your host this evening, and look at this panel. Look at the panel. It's just a few days before Christmas, and here they all are for some reason. Apparently their families have rejected them, and they're going to be on the show. We have a ton of stuff to cover, so I'm going to skip my ad-lib comedy and get right to the introductions so we can get to the good stuff. My wingman on this show, he is our co-host and most reflective man on the planet Earth, Mr. Tony Schaefer.
Hey, everybody. Hey, how you doing? And shout out to Only Child Brewing, who's providing my intoxication this evening. I have no idea what Dr. Fusco is up to there.
I have no idea. I just muted him. I said,
that's weird. So shout out to Anders. Hey, Anders, who just subscribed to the channel. So
nice.
Yep.
Hey, next to him is our man in the Pacific Northwest. He is our, he's the man I technologically envy. Notice that impressive microphone setup, Mr. Patrick Connor.
Hello, Yuletide's greetings, everyone's from Oregon. Thank you. I know we have a big show tonight, so I'll skip right to it. Russell, take it away.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Patrick. Next to him, the man making his last-minute microphone adjustments, Dr. Evan Fusco.
Hey, everybody. I started early.
No.
But I forgot to refill before the show, so.
Evan's going to be taking a break very soon. When you see him dash away, you know what he'll be getting.
Yes.
And next to him, a man who's worked hard all day at boulderhc.com. He is the founder and genius behind it, Mr. Paul Guzik.
Hey, everybody. And my beer sponsor is from Oregon this week. Session Watermelon Wheat. So
nice.
That would be probably more appropriate for summer, but it was almost summer today here. It was about 60 degrees and sunny.
Wow.
So
My gosh.
we'll go with that.
I like those little squat bottles. It reminds me of Red Stripe.
It reminds me of growing up in Canada because every single beer in Canada came in a stubby until
in a stubby bottle.
80s.
Yeah. Tall, phallic-looking bottles. That was for Americans. Jeez, I mean, real men drink out of stubby little bottle. Okay, we're gonna.
Yeah, but Mike Pence still only drinks out of stubbies.
Nice little tip for the viewers here. If you're ever working at a summer brew festival and they've got a bunch of different beers, you should try. So I volunteered to pour several of these. And if you get something like a raspberry wheat or watermelon, let's just say the clientele buying that, it's a lot more fun to interact with.
I like that. Okay, well.
So I guess I'm fun to interact with, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, Paul.
I think Paul's, he's making some kind of point there about you somehow. Our first up last night was the big reveal. And we should say originally scheduled for a week. It was delayed a week. And The Boring Company. The Boring Company, no longer boring. They're exciting. They debuted their 1.14 mile tunnel between SpaceX and the O'Leary Station, a house they bought in Hawthorne, California. Originally, this was going to be open to the public. Everybody's going to get a ride. And I think Tesla changed it when they delayed it. It was invitation only. And it looked like it was a pretty exclusive set of folks that got inside. I don't know how many of you out there watched the live feed.
I did. Yep.
I tried.
I did not.
There we go. Thank you, Tony. I sacrificed myself, or tried to. Let's see.
I'm even wearing my Monty Python t-shirt tonight in honor of the Boring Company's event.
Nice.
There'll be no farting in anyone's general direction. Thank you. So, this is most of what we saw for a little while. It was a little delayed, which, no big deal.
No. Tesla?
And frankly, anything involving Elon never starts on time. So, that's what we saw for a long time. But sadly, the live stream was plagued with problems. And in general, it would appear that the Boring Company rollout was less well. Patrick, I'm curious what your impressions were because we haven't talked about this at all.
Nope, we have not.
So tell me what you thought.
They covered a lot of stuff that we've heard before, like why they think tunnels are the right answer, how they're trying to improve the cost per mile of making tunnels, and how they're hoping that that can alleviate traffic problems. And alleviating traffic problems sounds like a great goal. I mean, it's what Elon called it, soul crushing. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people watching the show that would love to have an easier commute. So that was kind of cool, and stuff we've all heard before. Then they went into how it's going to be autonomous vehicles only in the tunnel, which I thought was interesting because they said that you had to have these wheel rails guards on the front, and that they could adapt those to any autonomous vehicle, not just Teslas. So I found that interesting. I don't know how that's going to work when you go in there. Does it have to go into autonomous mode or?
Yeah, I think we have to start at the beginning, Patrick.
Yeah,
I cut you off a bit. The original idea was a huge proprietary sled or
skateboard.
I like the skate word.
Yeah,
it's a skate with a pod.
Right, seating 12, 15 people, 12 to 16 people, and it would zoom at 150 or so miles per hour.
Right.
And so then that got scrapped to what Patrick is describing, which is, well, now everyone, it's BYOC.
Right.
Bring your own car, but not just any car. It has to.
So
be
all they're going to do is take the surface traffic jam and put it underground. I mean,
yeah. Except now they can have 36 lanes instead of maybe 6 or 8.
So let me summarize my thoughts.
Mile of $1 gazillion.
Yeah. Let me summarize my thoughts. And I want to say about half the press stuff that I read, big, huge failure, a total faceplant for Elon and the Boring Company. The last minute changes weren't really very rational or logical. The whole presentation, the whole methodology of what makes the Boring Company a potent argument just fell down and fell apart. The idea of this sort of hacked up little adapter, then Model X's are going to drive through this tunnel
at 150 miles an hour, Russell?
Quote unquote. Yeah.
No, right? Not 150.
Right. The top speed was 53.
50, yeah.
But of course, this was just a test. But again, I don't know. None of it makes any damn sense. It's like an Elon fantasy of having tunnels so that he doesn't have to mess with the hoi polloi on the freeway. And I get that. He's a billionaire. He's used to having a jet. He's used to doing whatever he wants. But these tunnels don't make any damn sense. And he proved it last night. And it was embarrassing.
Oh, I disagree. I mean, they didn't have some of the cool stuff that they talked about, but that doesn't mean they do. I would not call it a huge faceplant. If they can just forget about even what goes through the tunnel for a moment. If they can just reduce the cost per mile significantly and the time it takes to make a tunnel project, that alone would be a huge breakthrough for public transportation.
Yeah, but haven't people been trying to perfect tunnel boring machines for 20 years now, and it still costs $1 gazillion a mile to make a tunnel.
Right, but how many of them? There are lots of things that people have been working on for a long time. That doesn't mean that they can't be improved. And they literally have rocket scientists working on it in some cases.
Yeah.
And Elon has talked about how he talked about this at the event, how some of the stuff that they're doing, it's just 19th century thinking, and that no one has bothered to improve it. The tunnel boring machine is literally running 10 minutes out of every hour. The rest of the hour is mucking out what it's done and putting in the supports. And then you've got to put in all this air treatment stuff because they're running diesel down there and all kinds of other problems. So if you can look at what is really the limiting factor and re-engineer it with modern technology, running electric, putting in reinforcements as you go, you could make significant improvements. So they think they can get to 5x the standard relatively easy, and then maybe even 10 or 15 after that.
Right. But okay.
Yeah, so instead of $50 million a mile, it's going to cost $10 million a mile.
Right, which is a huge improvement. Now you can do
let me give you the tunnel improvement, Patrick. None of the rest of the scheme makes any damn sense at all.
Okay.
I mean, the elevators and the cars and the skates that don't exist and all of this other stuff. It's all like smoke and mirrors.
You still have to get into the tunnel, and you still have to get out of the tunnel. And yeah, that's great. If you have a car, or what is it, 2 cars every second zipping by, that's great. Now 2 cars every second are coming out of the tunnel and going where? And if they're not maintaining speed, then you're going to have a backup in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And if people can't come into the tunnel at 2 cars per second, well, they're not going to be 2 cars per second through the tunnel.
And never mind who owns the right of way where the tunnels are drilled. If it's below your property, you're going to say, well, I own the dirt below my house, and I don't give you permission to make a tunnel below my house.
Yeah, I don't think you own the dirt down to beyond a few feet of your property.
It depends on state laws and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have to get permits to do that, and obviously that's different in every state, and they're going to get those permits. In fact, that was one of the things they said, if you can do it in California, you can do it anywhere, because California is one of the most restrictive states. They do have oil drilling in the state. They have environmental laws that are stricter than most states, so they have a lot of hurdles to overcome. And so that's the perfect starting place, because if they can figure out how to manage California, they can probably figure out the other states pretty easy.
And again, where's the business model? Who's going to pay for the tunnel?
Well, I mean, there are plenty of tunnel projects out there today that are being paid for by municipalities and states and cities.
But they have like a transit tunnel has a 50-year or 100-year payback. So if you build in a tunnel for private people to drive their vehicle, and they say, oh, well, the toll is $80 every time you use it, how many people are going to use it?
It's $1. Elon said so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then the payback is 10,000 years for the tunnel.
Right. Perfect. That's long-term planning.
Model.
That's called long-term business model right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were talking about how many cars can go in and go out, and I'm sure that they are thinking about ingress and egress and how that's going to work. In fact, they talked about how they initially they just talked about using elevators, and now they've broadened that. They're talking about having just normal drive-in
ramps.
Areas that are ramps that could be long, gradual ramps down to whatever. It's not an elevation. What's the opposite? Anyway, down to whatever depth you want. And they're also talking about having spirals if you have less space, as well as the elevators. And they also talked about having not just one tunnel entrance and one tunnel exit, but having a lot of entrances and exits along the route, so that when you come out of it, you're closer to your destination, which I thought was kind of a neat idea, that if you can do that so that you don't have a bottleneck of everybody trying to get in at one
that's
spot.
A freeway with exits every couple of miles.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is. I'm sorry. Walt Disney invented this in 1955. It was called the People Mover. Same thing. It just one was elevated and one's in a hole. So I'm giving him the tunnel boring expertise. The rest of the logistics make no sense at all. The numbers don't add up. I would love it if Elon could solve public transit issues, but I don't see that happening. And again, he's a car maker, so his solution when he can't get his skates and pods working is to put cars down there.
Yep, and they're still early in their project, so I'm sure we'll see lots of. That's one thing about the way they do things, right? You move fast, you try stuff. If it doesn't work, you pivot, you try something new. So this is Rev 1. I wouldn't think, oh, if this isn't it, they've obviously totally failed.
This I totally disagree. And I'll tell you, and I'll leave it at this. This will be my final word, Patrick. I'll give you the final word on this subject. This isn't software. This isn't Rev 1. Hey, no biggie. We face planted. We're going to do something. We're going in a different direction. This was a huge year-long spending millions and millions of SpaceX dollars, which, by the way, that's just a little bit of a side issue now. Apparently SpaceX owns 5, 6, 8% of the Boring Company, depending on who's being quoted, in recompense for the money that was invested in this project. This is going to be the moment where people look back 10 years, 50 years, whatever, and go, that was Elon's brightest moment.
It's going to be in the same pile as the battery swap stations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Yeah. So okay. So what goes through the tunnel, I think, is relatively easy to change, and they can go through revisions of that. Maybe this Model X with rails on or guide rails on guide wheels on the front is not the final solution. Maybe they do come up with skates or pods or the boring people mover or some other idea. And I think they can do that without spending all the money to re-drill the hole. You can change what goes through it relatively easy.
So next subject.
I had a really good picture of Fonzie jumping the shark.
I know. If it makes you feel any better, Tony, I did too. I was in Kohler, Wisconsin last week. A week ago. That's why we weren't here. Driving the 20...
bathtubs.
That is in fact where they make the bathtubs,
and the
toilets and the sinks.
Kohler is a city. A lot of people don't realize Kohler is more than a brand name.
Kohler is a city named after a company. Driving the 2019 Prius. Now, why in Kohler, Wisconsin? Well, we've already talked about that. The big feature that Toyota is trumpeting about the 2019 Prius is all-wheel drive E, AWD-E, which is the worst acronym ever invented by any human anywhere, but nonetheless, all-wheel drive E, AWD-E. There was a closed course. There was no snow, but
so they had to manufacture snow.
They'd actually been blowing snow for a week.
Oh my god!
And they had grooming equipment and the whole 9 yards. The closed course was wonderfully snowy.
All right.
Because it was cold. It was like 18, 20 degrees when we were there. But there was no snow. And that happens. It's December in Wisconsin, January. Anyway, drove it on the closed course. You go up a little incline, and do what they, I didn't even know. Did you know like a road that's like an S curve is called a chicane?
Yeah.
How did I miss this?
It's at least gotta watch Grand Prix racing. They talk about they're going through the chicane and into the right-hand turn.
I see, and this is what I missed because I don't watch racing. Thank you, Evan. I'll
sure, whatever.
A neighborhood by my old apartment building a long time ago used to have a slow down for chicanes, and as you would enter the neighborhood, you'd have to go around these like sticks they had in the middle of the road just to slow you down. It was quite annoying. And they were mostly knocked down most of the time.
Ouch. Somebody would take the hit to get them out of the way.
Exactly. Somebody with a nice big bumper. Screw this.
So suffice to say, I'm gonna keep this short because there's a full review coming out soon. I've already posted the review with Shoichi Kaneko, the chief engineer of the Prius. That is on our channel at youtube.com/whatdrivesus.
Great job with
that. And it's
Thank
really
you.
Cool. Yeah. If you guys haven't seen it yet, you should check it out.
That's pretty impressive, Russell, that you got a private interview with him. Like, he must have been pretty busy and thought you were like the dude.
Thank you. I thought the audio was just horrible. And I apologize to everyone now because it's not what I wanted it to be.
It took 15 minutes to.
But
his microphone was horrible. I couldn't understand a single thing he was saying.
Because they speak Japanese.
It sounded like some damn foreign language or something.
Right.
Well, and then
or something.
I won't talk technical details, but I'm just glad to have the time. He's a really nice guy, and it was fun to chat with him. I felt bad because I embarrassed him at one point, and I didn't do that intentionally.
That was my favorite part of the interview.
See, and I got to tell you, when I saw this thing, apparently I was the first person who noticed it, and he was like, this is, and I'm like, no, it's not embarrassing. It's inspired. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you got to watch the interview because I'm not going to tell you what's on it, what we're talking about. But my thanks to Kanako-san for doing that interview, and Mr. Patrick for being the interpreter. Did a fantastic job. Short, I'll give you the short uptake. All-wheel drive E is pretty cool, and if you live in a place with difficult driving conditions, there is a significant difference. Now, it's not an SUV. It's not an off-road car. It's not going to plow through snow drifts. What it's going to give you is a much, much more sure-footed drive in difficult conditions. That if you owned a Prius and you lived in a cold place, you've been in this situation, and I was in this situation in Pennsylvania all the time. You go to a stoplight at the top of a hill. You're on an incline. The light changes from
red to accelerator and you go backwards.
Right. The light changes from red to green, and you're hoping to God you can go forwards.
So is the car behind you.
Right.
Yeah.
This car, no problem at all with that.
Nice.
None. It's really cool.
And but does it? And I know you said full review coming up, but I just want it's a Prius, so any hit to the mileage in the implementation of the
combined.
Okay, which is about the same, right? Yeah,
it's like 2 or 4 lower, but it's 50 combined. It's not bad. The extra motor does not add any speed. It doesn't work at all speeds.
It doesn't add a ton of weight. I mean,
it doesn't add a ton of weight. Yeah. It's a totally different motor than they've used before. It's not a permanent magnet motor, so it's not on all the time to conserve weight and to conserve energy. It only works up to 43 miles per hour. Toyota's engineering assumption was that after that speed, the other traction.
If you hit black ice, you're dead anyway. So,
right.
Right. The other traction control things would be more effective. I don't know. You know, I mean, like unfortunately the roads were clean and dry, so I didn't get a chance to like find something to slip on.
Welcome to northern Wisconsin global warming.
Yeah. But
and just from a technical thing that's really cool about all the Toyota all-wheel drive E systems is the electric motor is basically in the rear end of the car, and there's no drive shaft tunnel like a Audi or a Subaru or some other mechanical all-wheel drive system. So that, you know, gives more room in the cabin and allows the car to be lower to the ground, which isn't great for snowy conditions, but is good for aerodynamics.
It's to get AWDE, I think it's an extra $1,400.
Yeah.
Depending on the trim. It's not a huge amount of money either. So it's something that's very affordable.
And the interior space, I understand, is all the same, and you don't really lose anything.
Nothing. Yeah, you don't notice anything. They did do some nice internal flourishes that are really cool, and they have these really awesome ski and snowboard racks that go on and off in like 3 minutes. And I have a video of that coming out soon of us taking them off and putting them back on. It's like, and they're made specifically for the Prius. I want to say they're $199.
Well,
that's not bad.
I would find that shocking if Toyota would sell an accessory for $199.
No, I maybe $299. Okay, let's call it somewhere between $200 and $300. I'm not sure which, but I'll look. It was when they told me the price, I was like, I was expecting $700, right?
Yep.
No, definitely not. And they look cool. They're effective. I mean, come on, it's a Prius with a roof rack.
Nice.
Hey, got one last question for you, Russell. Yan in the chat room has asked, was there any mention of the baby spare? Do you lose anything with? I know that some of the Prius had the spare, some of it, right, does not.
The Prime has no spare.
Right, not the Prime, but the Prius here. Yeah. Does the all-wheel drive affect the packages that had the little donut?
That's a really good question. You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
I would reckon it won't affect the donut spare. If there was a donut spare, because the rear end is really small on these electric drive systems.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
okay.
Very small. I would suspect that. Let's put it this way: if the baby spare or whatever disappears, it's for other reasons and not
weight, not for volume issue.
Yeah, I was thinking that weight, you know, because they're always hypersensitive about adding additional weight.
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the donuts do weigh less than a full size spare.
Yeah.
Right. But if you added the electric motor, would they want to ditch the spare because to offset the weight gain of the electric drive motor?
Yeah,
I think is what Tony's getting at.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. All the way, Russell.
I'm sorry.
You didn't open the lower level of the trunk.
I am guilty.
Disassemble the battery pack, or
right.
Yeah,
you
have more cells in there to support that.
I needed you guys there to help me. I was too concerned. With driving. It's funny. Who's the guy? Like everybody else, all the other presses left. who's still on the closed course, like trying to get the Prius to spin out and stopping at weird places and starting and.
Mhm.
Too bad you didn't have real snow. You could have gone to a shopping center parking lot and just did donuts all night.
Right?
You could have parked yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, I'd actually use Google Maps to like spy out a few places. And I had a couple
Praying
of
for
times-
snow.
Yeah, I was praying.
I am so sad that you were 2.5, 3 hours away from me and I couldn't go.
I'm sorry, Tony.
Yeah, no, it wasn't your
You've
decision.
been there.
Yeah, we floated it past Toyota and they didn't extend me an invitation.
It was well.
That's it. I'm gonna drive my Prime into a pole just in.
I think you should, yeah. And at least for now, there's another wonderful question. I'm sure people are gonna. Is it going to come to Prius Prime? No, not now. Will it come in the future? We're not answering that. I think it's obvious that at some point they would deploy that. I don't know why they wouldn't.
All right. Briefly, I want to go back to the grammar lesson. So chicane has the same French root as chicanery. So that's a word we're all kind of familiar with, right? So to cause trouble, to create trouble. And a chicane is an intentionally man-made S-curve in a road rather than a naturally occurring one. So it naturally is there to create havoc, to create a disturbance.
Or wake you up.
So you can't call any old S-curve on the road a chicane unless it was intentionally put there, just not because of geographic things or whatever.
Wow, I thought you were going to tell us finally the antonym of elevation. See, this is a learning show, right? We're here to educate.
Absolutely.
Depth. I don't know. But so I think we have a name for this episode, though, the chicanery.
Chicanery. I like that.
Elon's chicanery.
We are so link baity these days. Just like boring chicanery. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip a couple of stories and we're going to go to Tony has a story next about some battery technology.
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone who's listened to the show for a long time knows that I love keeping an eye on future tech and what's coming. And I know that, when they announce something's coming, it's 5 years out, it's 10 years out. And then, 5 years later, there's something new to grab the headlines. And that's 5 years out and that's 10 years out. But, in the MIT Technology Review is mention of a company called 24M, and they had talked about.
No, Tony, does that mean they're 8 times better than 3M? Is that how they got their name?
It might be. I didn't do the math, but I'm not sure if it's a linear or a more of a hyperbolic
exponential
curve. Yeah, thanks. Wow, we're just dropping the multisyllabic words like nothing.
It is a polysyllabic evening.
Yep. So 8 years ago, they had announced a new, cheaper, better kind of battery, and this is, if you will, a follow-up. And they recently got some funding put in, $22 million funding from Kyocera and Itochu. Itochu is a textiles and trading business. Now, their approach to increase density for batteries is to fundamentally change the way the batteries are packaged. And so the way batteries are packaged, these days, we're accustomed to the sort of like AA and, looking cells that we've talked about that
the jelly rolls.
Yeah, the jelly roll. Exactly, the jelly roll batteries. Well, one of the things is by using different materials, they can cast the electrodes 4 or 5 times thicker, and instead of rolling them, they can they're laying them flatter. And since they're not rolling them, they don't have to put the what do they call them? The inactive materials between the rolls. And so by eliminating these extra materials, so the weight decreases and the cost decreases because now they don't have to invest in these other materials. And they threw some numbers out, and these are some serious scaled up results from tests. So Currently, they're saying that the batteries, the top end batteries currently on the market are roughly 250 watts per kilogram, and they're looking at 280 to 300 watts per kilogram, which already exceeds it, and they're working toward 500 watts per kilogram, so doubling the current top end batteries now in the market. Now, as you can imagine, they're actually better at larger scale. So we could be looking at, maybe cars instead of, smaller things, phones and laptops, but also energy storage for electrical grids, which is something, of course, Tesla's been going big into, and other
big-ass power walls.
Big-ass power walls, exactly. So the size of the battery, you don't have to scale down the battery to fit in small things. You can keep the larger pack, but it wouldn't have to be as large because you have a higher density. So again, this is just me looking at what's coming, what's out there. I love seeing how there are all these really smart people constantly working to push the limits of energy storage. And I think 24M, 8 times 3M. Just remember that, because hopefully we'll start talking about their batteries being put into power walls and electric cars and other things.
I wish they'd put a little diagram in that story of kind of what they're talking about, of how they're constructing these things.
Yeah, they also talked about how they were semi-solid.
No, battery.
So we've heard about solid state batteries before, and how that's this nirvana promise of the great next battery. And these guys are kind of, instead of trying to go straight to solid state, they're doing this semi-solid idea, which might be interesting. It might, if you do a half step like that, it might be more achievable. So I'm really interested to see how this turns out, but I'm not holding my breath.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, as with everything, we'll have to wait until we see the final product. But
we're still waiting for graphene batteries.
Yeah, especially when it comes to batteries, man. Like every month, there's some new battery thing that's.
Yeah, and making a one-off in the lab is completely different from mass producing something.
Right.
Yeah, making it work in the field, in a car, in massive temperature swings and
shock and power
demands.
But I do like this. It's out of the college lab, and you have again, like this $22 million funding from like Kyocera.
That doesn't hurt.
Right.
No.
Right.
Doesn't hurt at all. What does hurt is this next story, and this is the weirdest. I'm following this. So Evan,
so does everybody remember back in 2014, and there was this weird spate of Tesla Model S's that caught fire, and it was like 3 of them in a span of a couple weeks. And one of them was explained by this massive chunk of steel or something that somebody hit on the road that led to a kind of a recall where they put a protective plate under the front of the car. And I don't remember what the other one was, but then there was this one that seemed really weird. It seemed spontaneous. Nobody could explain exactly what happened. And now there's information coming out that, so the December 31st, 2014, this guy's car caught on fire. It kind of became a big story. Tesla offered him a brand new free replacement car, and then withdrew very shortly after that, rescinded the agreement that they had to give him a brand new car. And as it turns out, Tesla determined that a bullet had been fired into the battery pack from the passenger cabin. So
let's back up. Explain that in smaller words, a little slower.
The guy was in his car and shot the floor
with a gun.
And apparently Tesla.
Cletus and Jim Bob were out for a ride.
And so you'd go, this sounds like bullshit if this story hadn't included actual letters and information. Like there's exhibits from the lawsuit included in this thing. And apparently Tesla actually has the bullet that was fired into the battery pack. Now, I don't know if dude had some other dude in the car that fired the bullet and they thought, ain't nothing going to happen. Or if he intentionally did it to sabotage. I mean, there's so many weird questions to ask about this thing to try to determine what happened. But just a very, very bizarre story. of how one of those fires happened.
It is such a Pennsylvania story. You know.
Well, and then there's these bits in there that apparently Tesla had like detected faults and had reached out to the person that said, "Hey, there's something wrong. You need to bring your car in," and he kind of ignored it, which kind of to me kind of leads to did he intentionally sabotage it to get it to catch fire so he get a publicity thing? I don't know, but it's a very, very weird story. Worth reading. It's in Electrek back on December 16th. And worth reading through just to give yourself something to scratch your head over.
So the crazy part is after the Tesla many years ago hit a metal spike that caused a runaway heat event, now I think they're going to have to coat the top of the battery with Kevlar to protect it.
From bullets.
Yeah.
Cabin bullets.
It's such a Pennsylvania thing to do, like accidentally fire a 9mm round into your battery pack, just
but you kind of have to say, if you were in a internal combustion engine and fired a bullet into the gas tank, I mean, do you think it would go up?
No, I think that's a Hollywood thing.
A lead bullet? No. Maybe some kind of funky jacketed thing or something, but
I mean, with spill or
I think there's a Mythbusters on that. I think that's a Hollywood thing.
Yeah. I mean,
I was thinking at least the car started throwing error codes, and Tesla saw the error codes coming in, and then the car went down into power mode, and the guy was able to pull over and get out, and it all kind of had a happy, safe ending because the car took care of itself. But
right, they burn really hot, but they don't just burst into flames immediately. It's a slow start, slow build, lots of time to pull over and get out.
So the whole thing, it's not just, I mean, for me, yes, it's crazy that someone discharged a firearm in his Tesla. The question is, who did it? Were they in the front seat or the back seat? I mean, was it him? Was it a passenger?
Just stupid and were aiming for someone else and hit the floor, or what? Or was it intentional?
This is what happened.
There a struggle, like they were going to have a gunfight in the car, and then the guy knocked his hand down.
See, this is what happens when stupid people have road rage. They grab from the left and they shoot their own car.
Maybe somebody 5 miles away just fired into the air, and that's just where it happened to land. Who knows?
Yeah. Through the open window, because there was no entry.
Yes. No, that all burned up, so they don't know.
Oh, okay.
That is not the way bullets work. I'm so sorry.
Come on, you saw what happened to Kennedy.
See, this is
maybe he was going under an overpass, and someone shot down, and it went through the roof, through the floor, into the battery, and the roof had
the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's a book depository.
This is why we can't have tunnels, because what if someone shoots a bullet into their battery in the middle of a tunnel? See, the whole plan just falls apart right there.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, it's like Evan said, if it weren't for the letters and the official,
right,
nobody would ever believe this.
We found a bullet in your battery pack, sir. Oh, well, that's hard to deny, isn't it?
How could
Did
that
they ballistically
happen?
match it to his gun, though?
Yeah.
Exactly. Got CSI over.
Well, Tony has a next story about another electric car that doesn't have a bullet in its battery pack.
Not yet. I cannot wait to test drive and shoot a Hyundai Kona electric.
You just lost your chance saying the word shoot.
Oh my God. Did I say that out loud? I'm so sorry.
He didn't mean that.
So I'm bringing up a picture here because I actually think it's a relatively slick looking car. To be honest, I kind of like it. It's a CUV, and it's fully electric, 258 miles of range on a single charge, and it's great. I put up the picture and navigated away from the article.
I do like the quote that says it's the highest range of any car that isn't a Tesla.
It's a Tesla, yes, exactly. But unlike a Tesla, after the rebate, a $7,500 federal rebate, you can get it for under $30,000.
Wow!
So you can get. Now I forget how much the Bolt is. I'm kind of spacing on that right now.
What?
But so
the Bolt maxes out at like 42
okay
without incentive.
Yeah, so we're looking at in the 30s for the Bolt, under 30 for the Hyundai Kona, and honestly, this is a car I am really interested in driving because I really did like the Kia Niro, which I know this is not the exact same car, but Hyundai and Kia are essentially are similar manufacturers. And as much as I like the Niro, I can't wait to drive the Kona electric and see how this thing drives. If I could find a sub $30,000 258-mile CUV that drives well, has a hatchback and folding seats and all that stuff. Yeah, this car should sell really well, I think.
Does it have a high-speed charger port?
There's no mention of it in the article.
That's not important.
If my fleet guy gets one, I'll let you know. The problem is I'm in Illinois, and Illinois is not a carb state. So I'm probably not going to be able to get a hold of one of these for a very long time, unfortunately.
Yeah. And Eric Stevens in the chat corrected me. He says the Bolt EV is $37,495 with destination included. I think it's a little higher than that. It depends on which trim, but Eric is certainly a smart guy, and I stand corrected.
And no, I was going to say he also says that the Kona EV uses a bunch of syllables that I don't know.
CCS direct DC fast charging.
Yes, I know. So yeah, when I saw this car being announced, I was super stoked.
And of course, Tony, if you lived in Colorado, that
right.
They'll pay you to buy one. Shut the hell up.
No, so like it's after the federal rebate, it's $28,950, and Colorado gives you another $5,000, so that's $23,950. That's a pretty good deal.
And a 6-pack of Boulder beer and a bag of weed. That's it. I'm moving. Of course, I'm not trading in my prime, of course, to get one. But my wife's looking for a car, and we could go all electric. So,
well, with that kind of range, you kind of eliminate daily range anxiety. Exactly.
Daily range anxiety, and for longer trips, any concern about that, we just take the hybrid or the plug-in. I mean, this is the perfect two-car household car. So I'm hoping it's going to be at the Chicago Auto Show because I really want to get inside and I really want to talk to people about it.
It will be.
Hey, Toyota, are you listening? Like, you should be a car like this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kia's growing fast as a company and putting out some great products right now.
Yeah, and 258 miles is great. I mean, I only have 257 in my Model X.
Piece of crap. Oh.
Seriously, Patrick, the 257?
257. Yeah, it's the 90.
Just
Although Tesla doesn't make the 90 anymore, so I don't think that was actually it. But it is a funny coincidence. Yeah.
So the only thing, Phil in the chat room says the Kia's actually 238 to 239 on the US EPA scale. So I'm not sure what that number. So it's going to be a bit less still, but
it's still very healthy range. Let's put it that
absolutely. Way. Especially if there's enough CCS built out in your area for fast charging, that continues to grow.
Huge. Very cool. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to driving that someday. We'll have a review on our YouTube channel.
You'll get it before I do.
I think that's likely, yes.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, Russell, I literally thought about how much would it cost for me to come out to California to test drive one of these.
I think you should talk to your friend in Chicago.
Yeah.
And see, because he might be able to work some magic.
And I think that if more of if our listeners each chipped in $20 a month, then I can afford Patreon.com/whatdrivesus. Yeah.
What drives a show?
What drives a show? Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to give it to the wrong people if you pledge.
And if you see me disappearing on and off, I've been sick, so I have this horrible cough. So when you see me disappear, that's what I'm doing. I'm on the mic. Let's see. I think Paul has a story. He wanted to talk about something going on in Colorado.
Just a couple recent stories in Colorado. One is the there's a major push to spend some of the VW money on build a charging network, high-speed charging network across the state. And I think up to now there's 33 high-speed charging stations approved and will be built out in the next year or so. And another thing that looks like it's actually going to happen is Colorado will become a CARB-compatible state. And will be the only state that's not on a coast that is CARB, follows the CARB standards, which means the ZEVs like the Hyundai Kona will appear in Colorado's domestic market, which will be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Be very cool and really appropriate, as aggressive as Colorado is for incentivizing.
Yeah, and the new governor is all about the EV network and
free guns for everyone. Oh no, wait, that's the old
free weed for everybody. And it's unfortunate that Colorado, there's also parts of the state that are big oil and gas, but most people in the state are embracing electric vehicles and clean technology. So
yeah.
So yeah, stay tuned. Move to Colorado. You get $5,000 for any car that plugs in. If you a new car, if you buy it.
Hey, the last time I was in Denver, my wife and I were looking around at communities that were popping up, and a lot of them were solar powered communities, not just homes, but entire suburban communities that were coming up with each house having solar, and almost the entire community was off the grid. It was an incredible thing.
That's pretty awesome.
There's a lot of clean stuff here. I mean, NREL, the National Renewable Energy Lab, is right outside of Denver and Golden, and they do all kinds of cool stuff with solar power, wind power, new technologies. So a lot of stuff happening here in the middle of the country.
Yep.
Yay, the Front Range.
Yep.
I remembered that. I'm so proud of myself.
Well, and soon you'll be able to drive Kona Electric with your high-speed charge port across most of the highways across the state.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a good thing. Tony has a brief story commenting on someone's intelligence.
Yeah. So speaking of...
big surprise.
Yeah. Speaking of new electric cars coming on the market and federal incentives and how much the public loves electric cars and starting to purchase electric cars and ask for electric cars, President, I have the biggest words, has come out and said that General Motors positioning to go with multiple all-electric vehicles in 2023. Quote, all electric. Sorry, I can't all electric. I can't even say it like a whiny little child. So I'm going to have to say it in my own voice. So President Trump has said all electric is not going to work.
All electric cars is what he meant, right?
Yeah, all electric cars is not going to work.
Don't work. Which
and Tesla's like selling how many more cars than most manufacturers?
Right. Yeah. And why is General Motors going through this transition? Because they realize that electric cars work. And I mean, yeah, in this interview, he even said, what was it? It was nasty to tell me a couple of weeks before Christmas that she's going to close in Ohio and Michigan. Not acceptable to me. General Motors is not going to be treated well.
Which means what? I mean,
which means that he's throwing political leverage against a corporation.
Well, he's throwing a tweet against a corporation.
Well, yeah, he's throwing a tweet, but he's threatening political. So then he's going to up the tariffs to make it harder for them to import their cars. It makes it harder for everyone to. It's just what a.
Well, yeah, he said multiple times during his campaign that if I'm president, then none of these factories are going to be closing, and now they are, and it makes him look bad, and so he has to cast doubt somewhere else and make it GM's fault for doing something stupid according to his base. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense. It's dumb and it's wrong, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even. Yeah, David is good. I didn't even come up with cadet bone spurs. That's a pretty good one. Yeah.
Yeah, cadet bone spurs. And on that note, unless somebody has a secret one more thing, because I'll
we got to end on something better than.
We don't have Mark here, so
we don't have Mark here. We have to end on something better than Cadet Bone Spurs. No, not
that's
really.
just like a bad.
I don't have. You know what? All my other stories are downers.
You know what? Tesla is deploying another big 50 megawatt hour power pack in Australia, which is going to help level out the Australian power grid. So feel good about that.
Absolutely. Next week we'll talk. There's a great story about the creation of the Honda Jet. Very cool airplane.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next week. How's that? A little tease. Ooh, Honda Jet.
Hopefully it doesn't use the IMA powertrain.
Thank God it doesn't. Let's do some shout outs and go home, kids. Patrick.
Okay, I'll go first. We mentioned incentives earlier. I want to give a shout out to Oregon. We now have an electric vehicle incentive. We actually have two different ones. We have a $2,500 one that anybody with a new plug-in car can apply for. And depending on how big the battery is, it's either $1,500 or $2,500. And then in addition to that, there is another $2,500. If you have a low or moderate income, you can apply for that for a new or a used car. And you can actually apply for both of those. So you could get up to $5,000.
Nice.
And this has been held up most of the year through a lawsuit, and the lawsuit's now resolved. So if you search for Oregon electric vehicle incentive or clean vehicle incentive, you can find the paperwork, and you have to fill it out within 6 months of buying your car. So if you bought a Model 3 or some other plug-in car in 2018, go and do that paperwork tonight, right now, right after this show.
Wow. So, yeah, definitely.
Chevron in Texaco, or
the lawsuit was actually from AAA, and it was because there is a tax on new car sales, and it's a 0.5% tax, and it goes towards a lot of the transportation fund, including this incentive, and their lawsuit said that was against the state constitution, which said that any vehicle tax or fuel tax would only be used for road improvements, which this is not. So it didn't qualify. And so that's what had to be resolved in the courts. And it was. So that's all over. And it survived. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, so my normal shout outs. I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at OEVA, and we're on Twitter and Facebook. And you can find some of my writings at carswithcords.net.
And definitely go check out Patrick's stuff at carswithcords.net. Very cool site. Even if I disagree with most of it, still well done.
Good original content. And yeah, definitely follow the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association on Facebook. They
absolutely
really good.
If you like our news on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere, it's that guy that you have to thank. I thank him all the time. Mr. Patrick Connor does all that. It's a lot of just kind of boring journeyman work, and he's there picking up the stories and trolling my ass off.
I had to get some fun out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Trolls my ass off. Well, speaking of trolling my ass off, Dr. Fusco.
What have I got? So I got the new firmware in my Model 3 and played a little pole position on there. It's a lot of fun. Use the steering wheel to drive and the brake pedal to accelerate. It's
so not stripper bot. This is a different kind of pole position.
Different. And the fart feature is going to be a blast too. I will get much 8th grade laugh out of that.
See, I don't understand the fart feature because I didn't think Teslas had gas.
Right, it's emissions testing. Oh, my wife used this in the 3 when she picked up my daughter from school today, and now my daughter is a very embarrassed teen. Oh, Mom, don't do that. How can you hear that outside of the car? Stop it!
Nice.
Yes. Oh, that's great.
Nice.
Oh, hey, a little Easter egg within the Easter egg. In romance mode, there's the fireplace on the screen. When the fireplace is going, if you tap the screen once, it will start playing a Slacker radio station called Romance, which includes Barry White,
Oh my god!
Nice.
Oh,
That-
baby,
yeah.
I love you, baby. That's
Yep.
beautiful. It's romance with Barry White. Okay. I'm sorry. Wow.
It even turns the seat heaters on when the fireplace is going.
No.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, I know. And it turns the heater up full blast. It's awesome.
Baby's getting hot here.
Do you think
Uh-huh.
in romance mode? I mean, in romance mode, if you
Did you
shoot
call it no pants
Seats
mode?
recline.
in romance mode, if you shoot the battery pack, does it sexually heal itself? Sexually healing. Shout out to David in the chat room because he mentioned sexual healing, which got me on that train of thought. So
Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Thank you, by the way. Speaking of the master of sexual healing, Mr. Guzik.
Quick plug, my shop, boulderhc.com, fix and repair and sell hybrids and EVs. But I want to give a shout out to the guy who's making the rounds on the internet this week who invented the Amazon bait bomb package that blows glitter and farts and all kinds of fun stuff. And
yes,
it is very entertaining, and everybody who steals packages that aren't theirs deserves to be glitter bombed, especially if it's in their car, because
that guy is in Winnetka. Because you could see in the video he actually showed the streets and the stuff, and it was Winnetka, which is a suburb of Chicago. And it's like I just want to drive to his house and give him a hug. I want him to be my best friend.
It's like that video on YouTube where the guys cut the bicycle in half and then or duct tape back together and left it in a park, and people would steal the bike, and as they ride down, the bike breaks in half and they're flying over the handlebars. It's like it's so good revenge.
Just desserts.
Yeah.
I want to know how he found some place where people would just steal the packages so often. He had like 5 or 6 videos of
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
That was literally his.
It's like
his front.
in income suburbs where everybody's at work all day, and the UPS truck leaves them on the porch,
which is Winnetka. Yeah.
Wow.
That's the first thing I thought is like, oh my God, you guys need armed guards in your suburb because how the hell are so many packages getting stolen?
Well, and I will say Winnetka is actually a nicer suburb of Chicago. So the packages being dropped off, like, he had a...
If you're a package thief, you're going to go where the good packages are.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But it's such a good neighborhood. Everybody has to work to pay their mortgage, so there's no one home during the day.
Exactly. And he intentionally had it was a HomePod, right? So
it was a
you walk up to it and you're like, holy crap, I'm going to steal a HomePod. Yeah.
God knows why.
Yeah, so anyone who's watching our show, just Google the, bait package glitter bomb. It's very entertaining, and the guy's a smart guy who put it all together.
Yeah, it was ridiculously over engineered. I mean, it was
but he is an engineer, so
yeah. But the device itself had to be worth more than if it had been the real HomePod.
Oh, it's worth the revenge.
Yeah, 4 cell phones, a 3D printed container. I mean, it was beautifully done, if not obsessively done.
Yes. Yeah, I wish there had been a smoke detector alarm in there too that went off though, so they got the whole glitter, sound, farts, the whole appeal to all the senses.
And I learned this week that you can buy like farts in a can.
Right?
Yeah. Who knew?
And and my favorite, and people need to watch this. My favorite was the very last person who stole it. And he said, you could be this guy or even this guy. And it was the very last one. And you need to watch that to get to the very end, because that is the best setup ever.
Nice.
I'm not even going to ruin it. Everyone needs to watch it.
There you go. Wow. Really? So Guy in Winnetka, we're pumping your numbers.
Yeah.
There we go. Tony Schaefer.
Hey, like we said, shout outs to everyone in the chat. And, I always hesitate to give out names because I forget people, but, coming in early, of course, was Bruce and JT and Yan and Eric and Lee and Phil and David. Zachary came in for a little bit.
Eric.
And Eric and, everybody who's in there. Fusco.
Zach.
Screw you. And make sure, I always talk about our Flipboard. Philip Barclay also put some stuff in there. So if you use Flipboard as a news aggregator like I do, check out the What Drives This channel. you'll see all of our articles up there. And basically, as I'm reading through Flipboard and I find something interesting that's related to the show, I throw it up there. And sometimes I just enjoy going back and looking at past articles. So there's that. Facebook, What Drives Us. I don't know. Russell knows all the names of all the different.
I'll do that.
Yeah, you do that.
Thank you very much. Again, thanks to everybody in the chat room. Really cool group in there tonight. Thank you.
Oh, and Hockey Day. I forgot.
Hockey Day. See? Yeah, he'll get you. That's okay. He'll sneak up on you. As always, want to thank Michael Mannering for his amazing theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. You can visit us on social media. And oddly enough, we hide under almost the same name everywhere. So it's facebook.com/whatdrivesus. Hey, you don't care about your privacy. You're on Facebook, right? Did I say facebook.com/whatdrivesus? We post news. You can ask us questions, all kinds of stuff. Follow us on Twitter @whatdrivesus. You can support this show for a minimum of $1 a month. That's less than 25 cents per show in most months, not December. Holiday, it doesn't count. So patreon.com/whatdrivesusshow and on Instagram. I'm trying to get better about posting on Instagram. I'm a photographer. I have this natural aversion to Instagram. So Instagram.com/whatdrivesusshow. That's it. Show titles. I think, were we going with boring chicanery?
That'll work. Yeah.
Not
some good stuff sometimes.
enough clickbait.
Not enough clickbait. Yeah. So maybe boring chicanery. I don't know. We'll go chat room. If you got something, Tony will pull it out.
Chicanery?
I'm sorry.
Elon's boring chicanery.
Oh, why don't you just Elon Musk's Apple phone, iPhone, car, Tesla, chicanery.
Killer.
Elon's iPhone killer.
Yeah.
Chicanery with glitter.
Right. With the glitter bomb.
Yeah.
Because that's got to be, right? Yeah. The glitter bomb chicanery.
It's trending. That in there.
I think it's stripper bot. Yeah. I think it's going to be something with the word chicane in it because Evan schooled me on chicane.
Sexual bullet healing. That's a good one.
Bullet healing. Here we go. That's a fine title. I want to thank everybody on this panel. Amazing panel. Great job tonight, guys. Thank you so much for being on the show. And of course, everybody in the chat room. And most of all, each and every one of you who tune in, whether you download us and watch us or just listen to us while you're doing something else. Thanks very much. Tune in next week and find out what drives us. That's all I got. Next week.
Were you like people are having sex while we do this show?
Merry Christmas.
I don't know, probably.
Oh my God.
Hey, by the way,
romance mode.
Have a great holiday.
A romance mode in the model.
We'll see you next week.
Well, they watch the show.
It's Boxing Day.
Happy Boxing Day.